we have author Emily Sue Harvey and also Michael and Susan Cooper. It's so good to have you guys on the show with us tonight. So Emily, what have you been busy doing since the last time we talked?
Well, I stay busy all the time.
I understand.
I've got a book that I'm trying to polish. It's called the Breaking Through the Clouds. I had mentioned that before, and it's a collection of my own stories of how God has brought me through so many things. And you know, the last time I was here, we talked about the near-death experience I had when I fell down 14 stairs backwards. And it was pretty traumatic. And since then, I've just got to share what God has been teaching me. So many people say, how did that was one of the questions I thought you might ask me, how did it change my life? Okay, I want to read a couple of things that I just heard this week. These are verses, you know, sometimes they'll just reach out and grab you.
Oh yeah, that's why it's so
just
important
seize
to
your
read the
heart.
Bible continually.
This one is from the psalmist David. It's Psalm 27:4. One thing have I desired of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to meditate in His temple. And that almost makes me choke up when I read it, because this is the way I feel now. It's just been a fantastic change in my perspective of life. It's like every day there's an urgency to get as much done as I can in the way the Holy Spirit leads me to go. Every morning that I put my feet on the floor, I still say, thank you, Lord, for life, for limb, for my mind, that I can reason, I can talk. And here's another one from the psalmist David, Psalm 143:8. Cause me to know the way I should walk. For I lift up my soul unto Thee. I still find myself on my knees crying. Cause me to know the way wherein I shall walk. And my stories have always been, you know, inspirational when it comes right down to it. And we discussed this before, that I don't put up a red flag. I don't let people know that I'm going to write inspirational.
Right.
Because some people would say, well, I'm just not into that. So
I refuse to be inspired.
yeah. So anyway,
you know, some of those scriptures that you're reading, what you're talking about, that sense of urgency.
Yeah.
You know, my grandmother used to sing this song. It's an old song, Plenty of Time. You ever heard that song? It's an old song. I've never heard anybody sing it except for my grandmother, but it was in an old hymnal that she had. And you know, a lot of times that's the way people think. They think, I've got plenty of time, and they don't realize that, you know, you look at Jesus. I mean, he's 12 and he was in the temple asking the teachers questions, and they're like, who is this kid that's asking these questions? And when his parents found him, they said, why did you leave us? And he said, didn't you know I'd be about my Father's business? That's the way that we, like you're saying, we should be waking up saying, God, guide my footsteps, Lord. Let me meditate on your word. Because we have a short time period here, and what is it that I was sent here to do, you know? And that's, I agree with you 100%. We need that sense of urgency.
Well, I heard something this week that really impacted me too. It was an example from, I think, Joyce Meyer. I listen to Joyce a lot. She gets me going. But she was saying, you know, when a ballerina twirls, you know, we watched them. I couldn't do that. If you stood me before a firing squad and say, do this or I'm going to shoot you, I couldn't do it. But they have their trick, and when they twirl, they focus on an object or something each time they go around. And that's what keeps their perspective and keeps them from, you know, just flying off. But anyway, this is the same way when we are in the midst of all this darkness swirling around
turmoil,
us. I can't do ballerina, and I can't do the figure skating, twirling, but I can focus on Jesus.
Yes.
And that's what keeps us during the storms and during the dizzying darkness sometimes and the chaos in the world. So that really impacted me.
Yeah, he's our light. So like a lot of times people are just walking around in darkness, aren't they? You have a new national best-selling book, right?
I do.
And what's it called?
A Space.
So tell us.
I brought this with me.
I think I have one right here.
Yeah, you got one.
Tell us a little bit about space.
Well,
what's the origin of the title of Space? First off,
okay.
Is this about black holes and quasars?
No. No. It's give me my space. I got to have my space. So in this story, Faith, the miracle baby, who ends up in drug addiction, she comes home wasted and really still struggling with the drug habit. And here are two parents who have worked all through the years, and they need these golden years, they need this time to just enjoy life, you know, retire and enjoy life. And they find themselves in a very dark place. And each one is fighting for his or her space. And so they have to give up a part of themselves to achieve this, to just coexist. And this is really a story of how love and forgiveness keeps a family together. And maybe in the future, the person who was the character Faith will come with me and we can give her testimony.
Oh, that would be awesome.
But anyway, that was the basis of this story. And then about 2 months ago, it came out, perhaps 91, did you say? Not 91, 2001, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, my time thing tonight is all off.
Oh, no problem.
But it's been out about 4 years.
Writing all these books.
It's been out about 4 years at least, I think, or 3 years. And about 6 weeks ago, I think my publisher emailed me and he said the book that was promoted on Amazon has gone to number 3 in the nation. And it just hit me. I mean, it just really hit me. And it was like, it wasn't an excitement, but it was like I had a tsunami of chills that just were so strong that I just ended up like this. I could not even straighten up. And it just came and on and on and on. And finally I looked up and I said, Lord, okay, I know it was you. He did it. And that's going to be some of the story when I come back another time with this other person to give their testimony. It's a fantastic testimony.
And you also have Twilight Time.
Twilight Time.
What is this based on?
Twilight Time, the last time I was here, you know, we said that I was going to maybe write, I was working on the book. I just started on it. It was based on, my books are fiction, but they're based on truth stories, just like with the Coopers. I have some miracles in my books, and this was one. I based this on my experience, my recovery, how God gave me the miracle, and how He brought me fictionalized together with a husband fictionalized who was just going into Alzheimer's. And these two people are fighting to just get through the day.
Right.
You know, and she's fighting for her very survival for months. And in fact, I was still kind of recovering when I came before. But it was a long, arduous recovery. And this was something that I just felt like I had to write about. So it's a love story of these two people who are struggling, but yet they still are there for each other. And then there are subplots in it that also boost this and keep the momentum going.
And where are most of your stories set?
In the South.
In the South, why is that?
Good old Southern stories. Yeah. You know, even the Yankees love the Southern stories.
Oh, I know it. I know.
They do. They love them. Yeah.
I think I said this on here once before. We had a lady call us, and she you could tell she was from England. She had just a perfect English accent, and I said, well, I guess you can tell I'm not from London. And then she said, oh, but I love it. It sounds like sweet, beautiful music. And she said, don't ever change it. And, you know, when I'm on here, I try not to sound country as cornbread because I want everybody to understand me. But so most of your stories are set in the South. Mm-hmm. Okay, so are all your novels based on true stories?
Well, most of them have some parts of the plot that are based on true life, and even some of my characters. In Twilight Time, okay, we visited one of them this afternoon, JC, and he is a sweetie pie. But the gang in Twilight Time, the gang we call them, that helps Rachel and Peter through their hard times, they're there to support with love and a lot of humor. Mm-hmm. And JC was the main one. I mean, he is just the ringleader. And right now, JC needs prayer. His health is failing. But he was one. But now some of my stories, I'd have to think hard to find one that doesn't have some element of truth in it.
Because most of the time we're inspired by real life. So, you know, your book, Space, this is tells the story of Michael and Susan Cooper, right?
That is in there. Mm-hmm. That is actually incorporated into the lead characters, into their life. In other words, the daughter who is a miracle child, which that's where their story comes in. I use the real miracle of their child being born. And this later becomes the child who drops into drug addiction. And this is why it is so heartbreaking in the story, because this is their miracle child. Mm-hmm. And they can't just say, well, you know, so many people say, well, just put them out on the street, just, you know. But you can't do that when it's your miracle child. Right.
It reminds me of the Shunammite woman who brought her son with a hole in the head and said, look, did God give me this child just to take it away? Mm-hmm. It would be a very hard thing to go through, which you had to experience the death of an 11-year-old daughter. How did that impact your writing?
Well, that really turned me completely around. I was gonna teach school. I was gonna be a school teacher, and I really had that dream. But just almost overnight, after Angie died, I knew God was turning me in another direction. A lot of things happened, you know. I've just gotten where I just really submit when these things happen out of my timing and I'm getting where I just say, you know, okay, God, I know you're doing something. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to trust you. And I think that's one of the things that has really come about in my life in recent days is I'm having to trust Him more and more. And I'm seeing that everything is happening for a purpose. I know this sounds cliche, but it's true.
It absolutely is.
And it's in His plan. And if it can't get past Him unless He gives His permission. Mm-hmm. And we have to remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, purpose is something that I talk about a lot because it's there's a reason why we're here, and we need to. That's right. We need to realize that we're here for something.
Can I give one more quote?
Go ahead.
This is something I heard this week too from a dear friend of mine, from that wonderful evangelist Reinhard Bonnke.
Reinhard Bonnke.
He is precious.
He's from Germany.
Yes.
Mm-hmm, he's good.
And this just hit me because I thought, this is me saying this. He said, had I not gone through what I have, God would not have done what He did in my life. Mm. Oh, Lord, I have made you too small in my life. Oh, Lord, forgive me.
You know, the only people that made it in the Bible are the ones that had to go through just incredible adversity.
Right.
It's the reason they're in there. And we read about them, mm-hmm. and we get faith from those stories. So it's not, you know, I don't want to, a lot of times I'm sitting there saying, God, I don't want to, you know, I want to be used, but God, don't put me through anything.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's the way God gets the glory for Himself is through our lives. And when we're put under such pressure but He always triumphs in the end. And so that's why we should be able to just sit back and say, you know what, God, you're gonna win no matter what. So I'm not gonna look at what the enemy's trying to present to me and try to scare me with. I'm just gonna trust you. You know, I'm always reminded of Elijah whenever he was sitting there and the armies are coming to him, and he's sitting there with his servant. He doesn't have a battle armor or a sword or anything. And the servant, I just picture this guy, he's like a nervous wreck. Oh my goodness. Hey, you know, prophet of God, there's a whole army coming. What are we going to do? And he says, nothing. And I can just see him sitting there just sipping some tea or whatever they had back then. and then whenever they're getting ready to get there, he says, God, let them see our armies. And God allows the army of heaven to appear up in the sky, right on the cliffs, and they see it and they're blinded. And so the ones that come to destroy them are now at His doorstep saying, please help us. You know, God always has a way, but a lot of times He can't do something because we're too busy worrying.
Right.
He can't do anything when we're worrying and when we're trying to fix it ourselves. We have to let go and say, God, no matter what, I'm trusting you, and He'll always take care of us. Let's jump right back into our conversation with author Emily Sue Harvey, and I want to focus on the story in space, which you mentioned in our first segment that it was inspired on true event, true story with the Coopers. Now, how do you know the Coopers?
Well, Michael is married to my daughter-in-law. And so we've known them through the years. In fact, this is one of the neatest couples I've ever met. And I don't want to embarrass them, but honestly, if you wanted a good reality show, you know, they would do great with their little clan. I'm serious. They would.
Well,
it would have been entertaining.
Be entertaining.
Yes.
You know, I think a lot of our families, if there were cameras on us, I couldn't do that. I would constantly be coming around a corner getting ready to say something like, hey, honey, because, you know, those things just are so scripted. It's just not real life.
They could do it, though, and their children could, too.
But Michael and Susan, Michael, can you give us, I guess, set the stage or the setting of what this story, where this true event, what she was inspired by.
Right.
How long have you guys been married?
We've been married 27 years. When we got married, just for whatever reason, Susan just wondered if we were going to have problems having children. We started trying early, and as soon as nothing happened, we got worried, and we walked the road of infertility, which I believe it's the first chapter of her book, you know, setting up the main characters that go through the infertility, and we ran the gamut of pretty much everything the typical infertile couple did, at least 20 years ago. The technology's advanced a lot now, but so we walked a hard road.
How did you find out, or at what point after you had been trying did you say, maybe there's something wrong?
Oh.
Pretty quickly. I mean, well, 6 months in, I would say, I was pretty sure there were going to be issues. So we were pretty aggressive even though we were young.
How did you take the news? What I'm just trying to go through the process. I know there's people going through it, and they're probably saying, I don't understand the feelings that I'm having. Like, could you explain some of the things emotions, the confusion that maybe you went through when that was happening? You're like, we want this.
Gosh, it's like a hurricane. There's so many emotions, the ups and the downs of, and it's not like if you have a specific sickness and you go to the doctor and they give you a test and say, yes, you have the flu or something. You go through a battery of tests, and they're always trying to give you hope, and oh well, it's let's try this and let's try that, and people don't come out early really and say, oh well, you're infertile, and so that alone is a chore, a laborious process of going to the doctor and trying one regimen and trying something else before a doctor will really say, yeah, there's this problem, we've run enough tests and we can pinpoint one thing or the other.
Well, because of our age, I think we weren't taken really seriously because we had not tried for 5 years or 10 years or the emotional part. Every month there's hope building, and then there's letdown, and the roller coaster is unreal.
How did this affect your marriage during this time?
For us, I think it strengthened our marriage because we just held on to each other and to God, and I've heard other marriages not quite take that same path, but for us it was
the only way.
You have a common, a common struggle that you're going through, and like she said, it was really just, unfortunately, us, because a lot of people don't know how to handle it, how to talk to you, and so a lot of our well-meaning friends, when we went through this, didn't know what to say, didn't know how to handle things, and so they kind of pulled away, and so it really just left the three of us, me, her, and God, and it really was, I guess, foundational to our whole marriage.
And you said, I think we were talking before the show, you said you would find another couple who's in the same boat, and then they would end up getting pregnant, and it was like they just went off and joined the other clan now.
Right. It's tough because when you go through it, you feel like you're all alone, and if you find somebody else that's going through it, they can't really help you because you're looking for a problem to be solved, and they have the same problem.
Right.
And then if they get pregnant, or if you get pregnant, then you go into the solved problem, and so then everybody's just left. It's just a mess. It's tough.
How much were you able to support your wife throughout treatment?
I tried as much as I could. There was a lot of times. There's more infertility specialists in town now, but 20 years ago, the closest one that had any kind of track record was in Charlotte. So she was a nurse. She would work third shift, and there were times that she would get off of work and she would drive to Charlotte for some treatments, but I would have to go into work, and so a lot of things that she had to go through on her own, just logistics wise. But as far as being there and talking through things, I would be strong and she would be weak, or she would be strong and I would be weak, and so we really just fed off of each other. And
I know that plays a huge part in it. Me and my wife know a couple who's going through something similar, and if it was local, even now, they've had to go to Atlanta, and it's one thing when you have to go to the doctor and it's just like, all right, you're there, but you think of driving 2 hours, your hopes going and your faith going up and down, and it would just be probably the same as when you're driving to Charlotte. You're not just there and hurry up and find out. It's just a lot of emotions during that drive, wouldn't it be?
Oh yeah, and it was
especially you had to drive by
daily
yourself.
drives to Charlotte for blood work and ultrasounds, and the whole way there, the whole way back, it's just all the roller coaster of emotions. Wondering if this is going to be the treatment or the time. Not that we didn't trust in God, but we did trust it for Him to move medically if that's the way He chose to do it.
You went through some agonizing things too.
I did. And there was a lot of guilt on my part because the infertility was my medical issues and not his. So I kind of felt really guilty for a lot of years that I was the reason he didn't have a child.
So
And,
what finally happened? What did you guys decide to do?
well, after we had tried several cycles of like inseminations and failed, they gave us one last treatment because they said everything was blocked. There was no way to, for
No
even
way for you to have a baby.
no way for me to medically
doctor
have
told
a
her she
baby. There were
couldn't.
lists of reasons why I medically could not have a baby. And so they told us we could try in vitro fertilization for a test tube baby back up in Chapel Hill. And we were optimistic, but we were horrified because that was going to be a one-time deal for us because of the cost and the time invested. And so we decided to go ahead and do that. And that was not successful. And at that point, we were pretty broken.
Yeah. I know another couple who did it and they ended up having twins, and we know someone else who tried that and nothing. And so you see, it's like either, sometimes they say you can actually have two because through that process, but if you don't and you've put all of this in there, it can be heartbreaking because you've tried everything. So what happened after that? What did you guys decide to do?
Well, physically, we took a break, and well, financially, we took a break. So we decided to pursue adoption, which that's a whole different story of
That's a whole
miracles.
other story in itself.
We did end up adopting a child when he was a day old, and 14 months later, we adopted another child when she was a day old. And then I got what I thought was the flu, and I'd never had the flu. I was sure I had it, and it didn't go away. And long story short, I was pregnant at that time and had conceived somehow through the miracle of God. And
Praise God.
the infertility specialist, I thought I was having more medical problems. I was sure I had there were so many other things I thought I had that were scary, and pregnancy wasn't one of them. I never even suspected initially.
How far after you had done the adoption this happened?
Oh, well, I got pregnant when the second child was 6 weeks old.
You know,
So-
you guys watching at home, this is like news to me. Like, I didn't know this part. I'm like sitting here so excited. Thank God. This is just awesome news. I hope there's people at home just hearing this. You know, I think that sometimes a big part of it is, you know, I was telling you about the worry, because it plays a toll on you. Does it not?
It does. It plays a huge toll on your whole life.
You
It's
know,
the
I
stress.
know there's married couples out there that are going through this, and you know, we know people going through this, and they, you know, a lot of people don't realize the stress that it puts on you. We've got some people we know, and I mean, come on, folks at home, we're grown-ups here. You know, God has given sex to a husband and a wife. It's a blessing. It's a bond between a husband and wife, something they can experience only if you're married. And what our friends are going through. It's like it doesn't become a blessing anymore. It's just like work, because they're trying and trying, and all of the desire is gone out of it, because it's like, is this going to work? You know. And it's stressful, and it can be stressful on a marriage. And you know, we've got the Mattingly's getting ready to sing, but I want to say this, you know, because this is, and I can't wait to get back. We've got another segment with you guys. This is so awesome. You know, Jesus at one point he said, "Do not worry." He said, "Why do you worry?" He said, "I want you to look." He said, "Look at the birds of the air. Now, where do the birds belong? They belong in the air. When you think of a bird, you think of it flying. You don't think of it swimming, do you? You think of it flying." He said, "Now look at the lilies." And then he says, "Of the field." A lily belongs in a field. That's where it belongs. Bird belongs in there. That's the environment. lily belongs in the field. That's the environment it belongs in. Now, if you take a plant or a lily and you take it out of the field and you say, I want to set it on this desk, it's going to be dead and weak. If you take a bird and say, I want this bird to swim, it's going to drown. I mean, there's some birds that can go under for a little bit, but it's going to eventually drown because it's made to fly. Well, when he's talking to us, saying, why do you worry? He's saying, look, the birds belong in the air. The lilies belong in the field. You belong in a position, an environment where you do not worry, but you trust me. And sometimes, like, I feel like the stress began to go away and the worry began to go away. But when you had a child, you had an adopted child, and there is an effect on our body. They say that 85% of all sicknesses are stress related. That's why God says, don't stress, don't worry, I'm your king, trust me. If you trust me, everything will be fine, but if you don't, you're in violation of my law, and you'll get sick, and it'll have an effect on your body. Man, I hope people at home are watching this, because if you are going through this same situation, listen, God can answer, and we have to trust Him. We are back with Michael and Susan Cooper, and during this second segment, you have found out that they had finally, after trying everything, they adopted a child. And then you found out you were pregnant.
We adopted two
children.
And you adopted 2 children, and you've also now had 2 children.
Yes.
Biological children. So, I mean, what did you think what did you go to the doctor for when you were pregnant? Did you find out you were pregnant? Did you find it at home?
Well, I had a positive pregnancy test at home, but I had all kind of medical reasons as to why that happened.
Mm-hmm.
But it being a pregnancy was really not one of them.
Yeah, there were so many hormones that were all over the map with all of the things that we were afraid it was truly a false positive, and
Right.
and that something bad may be wrong.
So I called my infertility specialist in Charlotte, and he was like, your fallopian tubes are blocked, so this could be high risk. So I want you to come see tomorrow. The next day, I drove up to Charlotte. I didn't even take him with me. I wasn't suspecting to get really what I found out. But when we got there, they were doing the ultrasound, and the nurse and the doctor were discussing and looking and studying, and he said, well, it's in the right place. And I said, what is? And he said, the baby. And it's a baby? It's really a baby? And I could see it on the turn. Oh, here.
Man, I wish we could see your face. I bet. Oh.
I wish I could have seen my face.
wish I could have seen
What
it.
did she call you? Like,
Well, this was way before cell phones. I mean, this was 20 years ago. We forget how easily connected.
well, I figured she'd go to the reception desk. Like,
I
mean,
called him, but I did. I think it was very quick, and I left a lot of questions in his head. But I was 8 weeks along at that time, and I still couldn't get in my head that what I was seeing on the screen, it seemed like a cruel joke. I really thought they were playing a trick, and it just was that unreal. And all the way home, I was in the car by myself. I was like, he says it's a baby. It's a baby. It's really a baby. So,
oh my goodness, this is so wonderful. When you've tried everything, then there's nothing else. You can just say, God, it's got to be all you. And He answers. Oh, man, this is so wonderful. You guys have you have a family picture. I think we can bring it up on the screen, right? Okay.
That's
so
everybody but our oldest.
Tell us who everyone is from left to right.
Well, he's on the left. The redhead on right beside him.
That's the first miracle.
Is the pregnancy that was our big surprise. Just beside her.
What's her name?
Her name's Mariah.
Mariah.
Beside her is Daniel, and he is the one the doctor said it happened one time, but it won't happen again. And there he is.
Praise
And
God.
Rachel is next to Daniel, and she's our second adopted child, our first girl. And then I'm on the end. Our oldest was not in this photograph, but
Praise God. This is just wonderful. Hallelujah. I love this, man. I'm wanting to get up and shout right through there. This is so exciting. God answers. I'm just like beside myself right now because I love to see God move like this, and He does. He still answers prayer, does He not?
He does.
And you know,
Absolutely.
we can, your book Space, you
Mm-hmm.
were, I can see why you were inspired. If I had friends like these and this story going on, I'd be writing books also right now.
Yeah.
Tell our audience before we end our first hour, because I'm sure there's some people out there that are interested in hearing, reading these books. So how can they get a hold of them?
Well, they can of course, go to Amazon.com, and you can go to Barnes & Noble, any online bookstore, you can order them. You can get them in Kindle, hard copy, whatever. And what was the other thing we talked about? Oh, you can also, the ones that aren't savvy with the computer or don't have a computer, you can get them by going to a bookstore, your favorite bookstore, and asking the proprietor to order it for you. And maybe she can pull up the titles of Emily Sue Harvey books, and then you can choose which title you want. The ones we're discussing tonight are Space and Twilight Time, but I have 8 out now. And Space is the #3 national bestseller. I had another, well, I actually have 2 more, but I think it's Under These Hills is the other bestseller.
Mm-hmm.
And Home Fires is in the top, you know. So
they have a lot of
so
options of how to get a hold
yeah,
of that.
you do have options to get the books.
Man, this has just been great. Michael and Susan, you know, I know there's people out there that maybe they've been going through this, they've been discouraged. What would you say to them right now if they're right in the middle? You think of the worst part of the time that you were in. What would you say to those folks right now? Because some of them may just be hanging by a thread of what to do.
Yeah, like what she said earlier, it almost just sounds cliche just to say to trust God. We're never guaranteed anything. You know, you hear, you know, like life's a bed of roses. Well, you get a bunch of thorns when you get the roses too. Life can be tough.
Yeah.
I wish that we had some great magical word that we could give somebody, but you know, when everything that you have or everything that you want to have is either taken away or never given to you, all you have is God.
Absolutely. I think that is perfect.
And
That's right.
you know, it's for anybody that's going through it. You know, our prayers are with you. When I read the first chapter, I was laying on the couch and I was crying, and she was asking me, you know, why were you crying? I said, I feel so sorry for these people, and it's, you know, it's just tough, but just know that God's there.
Amen. They need to just trust God.
Amen.
Michael and Susan Cooper, Emily Sue Harvey, so good to have you guys on with us tonight. Thank you for coming. This has been a blessing.